At what point do you think Israel's crimes against the Palestinians reach the threshold of horror and unacceptability, that they deserve the same sort of sanctions as apartheid South Africa? I'm asking that question because I think the crimes they've committed are way in excess even of that horrific regime. Way in excess. Something many South African representatives, going right back even to Mandela, were saying long before the genocide of last year, or Desmond Tutu, were saying this is an apartheid regime, it's obnoxious, it's horrific in its treatment of Palestinians, and now we have a genocide. And so my question is, like, at what point, when you're discussing this with Keir Starmer, whose views in continuing to justify Israel's crimes are just shocking beyond belief, but I ask the question genuinely, when do we say that in just the same way as apartheid South Africa had to be cast out of the international community, totally isolated, because its regime was based on systematic crime against the majority of the population, has Israel not reached that threshold? And very specifically on the Israeli war bonds that are being touted as financing their campaign in Gaza, their genocidal campaign in the view of many, if not most people. How can Ireland be facilitating the sale of these bombs to finance the mass murder of Palestinians, and will you do something about it?
Deputy Murphy and Deputy Barry and Deputy Americo on the issue of Israel, on the issue of the actions of this government. Firstly, to be clear, when I meet everybody, publicly and privately, including the President of the United States of America, I raise the issue of weapons. I believe every country needs to use every lever at its disposal to bring about a ceasefire, to stop the violence. In some cases, in Ireland, that doesn't involve weapons. In the case of the United States, it does. So people are trying to, for whatever reason, suggest things that simply aren't true. You didn't want me to meet the President of the United States. You made that point as I set off from here to meet him. That's your prerogative. I believe it's extremely important that we do. And I believe it's extraordinarily important that we continue to engage with the British Prime Minister for a whole variety of reasons, not least the peace process and them being our nearest neighbours. I do think there's a sincerity from people in wanting to see a ceasefire. I think the actions of the world to bring it about have been utterly ineffective. I made a point not a million miles from Deputy Boyd Barrett's point at the European Council this week when I asked the question, what is the tipping point by which the European Union decides to take action on the association agreement? And the reality is, and being very honest in this House, it is a minority view amongst member states that the association agreement on trade should be reviewed. I find that really deeply unsettling, quite frankly. Spain share our view, Slovenia share our view, a number of other countries may share the view, but certainly not a majority of countries. That is why we have looked at the Occupied Territories Bill in the light of the ICJ advisory opinion to see if there's a new context now. The International Court matters, what it says matters, and in the view of this government it places an obligation on member states to act. It's not the same thing as saying the Occupied Territories Bill as it is works, but we are willing now and wanting to, in light of the new Attorney General advice that I sought, engage, and as soon as today, the Taoiseach will be speaking to the sponsor of that bill. Our words aren't empty when it comes to support for Palestine. Ask the Palestinian President, ask the Palestinian Authority, ask UNRWA, ask the United Nations. This is a government that's acting in terms of trying to support the people of Palestine.